Hello, everyone. It seems like we are live. Um, we've got 14 people, 15 people. We'll give it a minute more for people to join. But effectively, uh, we have basically gathered here today to talk about MCP and talk about how graphs and graph technology can work closer with various MCP servers, and what have we been building over the last while to make the whole experience easier and accelerate developers. Just a little bit of background. So my name is Marco. I'm the CEO of Memgraph. Probably for the first time doing an introduction to one of our community calls. So very happy to see everyone. And basically last week, for those who haven't joined, who don't maybe know, who haven't seen, we have had a very busy week. So last week we have introduced a number of tools that have the main purpose of accelerating developers on their GraphRag journey. And to be super practical, we introduced unstructured to graph and SQL to graph, which are two tools as part of our AI toolkit Swiss Army knife set that basically accelerate developers in modeling and basically modeling data modeling their data. So there's structured and basically unstructured data into a knowledge graph. So if you haven't, definitely make sure to check that out. There's two community calls that we did last week where we went super deep into that, and hopefully that will help developers accelerate and basically build their GraphRag pipelines faster and easier. Any feedback, we are definitely here. I know the guys from Developer Experience on our Discord are very eager to get any feedback, any thoughts and ideas are definitely very well. But why we're here today, basically, we want to talk about, tell you more about how do graphs kind of connect with various MCP servers out there, and how can we make the whole experience more interoperable. So that obviously you're building your GraphRag pipelines, you want to get answers on a bunch of your data from various systems, you want to model it, and we want to provide basically a connection kind of between that. We know that developers, love our Memgraph Lab as a visualization tool. It is basically their go-to user interface when they work with Memgraph, and through it as well, they want to connect AI and they want to connect various other MCP services. So basically, without further ado, I want to welcome and introduce Tony. Tony's our head of platform engineering, who is basically spearheading the effort in our interoperability and basically building the whole thing. So that's it. Tony, over to you. And maybe final thing, there's obviously kind of a bunch of questions on the side. So as we go through, definitely feel free to ask questions and comment along and be kind of proactive as well. And then Tony, at the end of the presentation, he will be kind of answering them as basically as we go through. Cool. Tony, take it away.
Thanks, Marco. So yeah, as Marco said, I'm gonna give you an intro to the MCP overall, the MCP client that we built, where it stands, how it can be valuable, how, for example, if you want to build an MCP client, how to do it, what are the challenges that you might encounter, and everything that comes together to create that interoperable graph context. So let's move on. As Marco noted, I'm Tony. I'm head of platform engineering, and I'm leading the development of the lab, which is primarily the Memgraph database client, but it became more than that, so which we will cover in this presentation. So the agenda, so how it's gonna look like today. We will have a quick intro just so we can be on the same page. Pretty much going over the motivation, why the MCP started, what problems did it solve. Then we will dig deeper into the MCP, not really super deep, but pretty much get the core concepts, how they work, how you can use them if you are building either the MCP server or the client, which we will also cover in this presentation. Then I will show you what we have been building in the lab, how you can use it with a small quick demo, what are the challenges and the upcoming AI features, which you can expect in the Memgraph lab. So let's move on. The quick intro and what really drove the creation of the MCP. I'm sure that you are already familiar with, like, when the LLM started, like, there was really a simple workflow. You had a prompt, you send the prompt to the LLM, and you get the response. And it was usually pretty simple, like a text. For example, compare reports from 2024 and 2025, and then you would also copy the reports there, send it to the LLM, and then you get the response, like a clear comparison and everything that comes with it. And after a few months, before getting into what happened, like, you were the one that were choosing and providing that additional context. So if you want to compare reports, you need to get the content of those reports and add it to the prompt. Otherwise, the LLM has no idea how those reports look like. And then the functions have been added to the LLM. I think, I'm not sure if OpenAI or Anthropic were the first one that introduced that. And that was like a breakthrough, which was really cool. And like, what are the functions? So if we get back to the same example, with the functions, you could say, hey, compare the reports from 2024 and 2025. But if you need additional context, you can use these functions, like get account or get report by year and so on. So you're pretty much asking a question to the LLM and also providing, like, these are the functions that you as an LLM can ask for, and I can provide you that. So you created not a monologue, but pretty much a dialogue. And the LLM in that sense would give a response, not the text, but pretty much, hey, I need report from 2024 and report 2025. And now the things got a bit complicated, meaning you are showing what can be added to the context, and you are not the one choosing, like the LLM chooses what should be added. So the LLM asks for it. Now the question is, like, okay, who is providing that? Who is actually implementing that part where you need to get that report and give it back? And it's actually you. So then it's not a simple interaction like the prompt and response. It becomes, as I said, a dialogue where you would then get those reports because the LLM asked for them. You will get those reports, plug them in the initial prompt, and give it back to the LLM. And then the LLM has all the resources to work with and give the follow-up answer. And this can go on. It doesn't need to be like a one-step conversation. It can be n-step conversation, depending on what you are pretty much providing compared to what LLM is asking for. And this was really cool because you don't need, like, you can expose the prompt part to the users, and you can actually define all the functions of your system. What are the different data, different actions that can be done on your system, which is pretty cool. So you are owning the capabilities and resources, and users are asking questions without interfering those too. And with that in mind, so we have the client asking a question and the functions which you pretty much use to describe your system capabilities. And with that in mind, you can pretty much then connect any service, right? So you have a client on one side, which is a user using an app, asking an LLM, and on the other side, you can describe different services. For example, it can be, I don't know, Stripe. and you can describe, hey, charge this account, get payment methods, create an invoice, and so on. It can be Slack, create a channel, send a message, Salesforce, create these invoices, and so on. So you can pretty much describe all the different actions and resources that not LLM, but anyone can use. It's so-called an API. And as you can see, like it can become pretty hard to maintain, right? So we have an API from one service, API from another service, API from third service, and different ways how the client can interact with all those. And you have that issue of infinite different integrations. And it happens all the time. Like you usually, like whenever that happens, there is a standard coming up, and then people are creating those systems that align to those standards, and then a new standard comes on, and so on, so on. And this is the same situation. So we need a standard. So we need something that we don't need to connect to n different APIs, but pretty much to a single one. And we expect the other side to be compliant with it. So we need a new USB-C. And that's pretty much how the model context protocol was created. So you can see, like in a box, we pretty much define the client side, the server side, which are always the same. And it really depends what kind of resources, tools, functionalities they provide. So you pretty much removed the issue of different integrations. And the MCP was it was created by a company called Anthropic. They also created the models like Claude models, and you have the Claude desktop applications and Claude code. So what they pretty much define the open source standard, so everyone can use it, and they are pretty much leading in it, depending on what kind of features they are implementing there, and the support of it. So how it looks like is, so you have the AI app on one side, which users use, which is connected to the MCP client. MCP client is the one talking with the LLM. And then on the other side, you have the MCP server, which is connected to your external system. It can be any system pretty much. And in between, you have the MCP transport. So those are the components of the MCP protocol. And we will now dig deeper into each one of these, just so you can get a sense of how all these work together. Okay, so let's get to the core concepts. We have the client, we have the server. The client, it's pretty much, it connects and communicates with the server. It can be multiple MCP servers. And server, on the other side, it exposes those capabilities. If you remember the example from before, like those reports, you can get report by giving me a year, and I will give you a report back. You can ask an account information by an account ID, and I will give you the account information back. So you're pretty much defining the capabilities. And regarding the servers, so it's open source, meaning you can create your own server. Like there are also libraries like fast MCP, so you can pretty much create an MCP server within a minute. You create it, you create those capabilities, expose them, and start the server. And what's cool is, as community started, like websites like these, where the awesome MCP server, so people are, whenever a new MCP server is created, they are adding it to this registry, so you can search. You can see you have the official ones, you have the community-based MCP servers. Pretty much it behaves like the libraries in any of the programming languages, where people are contributing, creating new libraries, and then sharing them. This is pretty much the same in the AI world. So you're exposing different capabilities, different functions to the AI application through this MCP protocol stuff. Okay, now there are several features which we will now get into, not in super details, but I just want to so you get a sense of what they are and how you can use them. Why is that? So if you are building the MCP server, so you can know what I really need to build. Do I need to build only tools? Do I need prompts? Do I need resources? So what should I focus on? If you are building an MCP client, you can also, like, depending on the use case, you can see, okay, so what should I build? So what my client should be able to handle from this MCP world. So you see like 7 features now, and new features are coming up like every month. And not every MCP client has all the features. Not every MCP server has all the features. We'll get to that later. Usually, the tools and prompts are mostly the ones that are implemented. Like the tools are those functions, and the prompts, I will get back to the prompts in a second now. So the tools. So the tools is pretty much it's the functions that your LLM can use to get that additional information. So the LLM is the one that picks what to call, what to use, but the MCP client is the one that executes that. So the MCP client is executing that on the server to get that information and give it back to the LLM. For example, in the Memgraph world, in the graph database world, it can be run this cipher query, run this PageRank algorithm. And the actual implementation of that is on the MCP server. So the MCP server knows how to run cipher query. It knows how to run PageRank algorithm. And the LLM is the one that we say that will give the response. Hey, I want to run this cipher query. I want to run this PageRank with this input. So that's how it all works together. The prompts on the other side. So it's pretty much the templates. For example, imagine if you are talking with any AI chat now, and you have, I know, a prompt, a template where you just need to input few fields in there, and then you have the whole message that's pretty much well prepared for the LLM to answer it correctly. That's a prompt in the MCP world. So how it will look like, for example, if people are having difficulties optimizing cipher query, for example, they start chatting like, hey, optimize this query, and then give the cipher query. And the LLM, we figure out the LLM is not really good in optimizing that, depending on the prompt it received. How we can use these templates. So we can pretty much create a template called prompt optimize cipher query, where we get the cipher query and we create an initial message to the LLM. And it can be more than just, hey, optimize this. It can be optimize this query to make it faster. In order to find what this query does, you can use explain or profile, try to run it through several iterations. Like, you can give more context, and you don't need to repeat that text each time you want to optimize the cipher query. So that's where these prompts are pretty useful. And if you have users where they can input only a few fields, and you are doing the prompt engineering on the other side to get the best accuracy from the LLM, this is the way to go. So you create those prompts, and the AI app can use them. So you simplify the workflow for the end user, and also you get the best accuracy that you can. Well, you need to invest some time in prompt engineering to create the best prompt for it. The resources, it's pretty much like read-only data sources, like files, documents, schemas. In Memgraph world, it can be like graph schema. Give me the graph schema of my database. So those are the resources. As far as I've seen, mostly MCP servers, they create, like, what I've seen, what has been created, they usually create tools rather than resources, even though something can be a resource because it's a read-only, it's like a database schema, it won't change that often, but usually they create a tool called like get graph schema. Both are correct. It's more a terminology and how it should be structured. I've seen resources used most when they are building MCP servers that work with file systems because it's way easier to align that resource is a file. So that's how it's used the most. And instructions, this is something new. So it's pretty much a hint where, like, when a client connects to the server can say, hey, this is how you can use my features, my capabilities. Like, it gives some hints. These are the hints for the client, and then the client can decide how to use them. For example, it can be, it would be great to add this to every single prompt. In Memgraph case, it can be Memgraph cipher specifics. Like, these are the different cipher syntax compared to what you have seen in the open cipher standard. And please use these when you want to optimize, run cipher queries, and so on. And every external system might have their own different hints. For example, I know Stripe could say that all the pricing, all the values are in cents, so there are no decimal points and all that kind of stuff. So it can be pretty useful on how the MCP client should work from that point on. The elicitation. Oh, by the way, why the elicitation is now in the below the MCP client? So these are all MCP features, and they are on both the MCP client and the MCP server. But I added them below the client or the server depending on who owns it. Meaning, if we don't have a client, we won't have that feature in that sense. So the elicitation. So what's the elicitation? Sometimes, for example, you need to run, you need to create a graph schema. Okay, so the LLM says, hey, I have, so the user added the CSV files. LLM is called, and LLM wants to create a graph schema. It calls that tool and gives the CSV file headers. And the MCP server that creates that graph schema might see that, like the actual implementation of it, might see that, okay, I have the input data, but I'm not aware of what user will use this database for. What kind of queries will be more dominant, like write or read queries. And then the MCP server can initiate elicitation. And it's pretty much, I need additional information from the user. And then the client shows pretty much the questionnaire, or depending on how it's implemented in the UI, with that actual question, and then the user can write, oh yeah, I have more of these, I have this, I have that, and so on. And then the MCP can continue working on. So it's pretty much as like what we've seen all before. It's client and the LLM defining what to do and the MCP executing it. In the elicitation way, the MCP initiates, the MCP server initiates the question, and the user responds back. You might see this like if you use any code editor with like Copilot or Cursor or Claude Code, when they are doing some actions and they ask you for approval. Hey, can I do that? And then you see an approval, yes or deny. That's pretty much elicitation, because the MCP server needs your approval to continue working. It's not a questionnaire, but it's pretty much the approve or deny. So that's the elicitation that works there. Sampling. Also, the MCP server initiates that. Sampling is pretty much, the MCP server wants to call LLM on its own. Well, it's not on its own, but the user still needs to approve that. The user needs to approve the call to the LLM, and user needs to approve the response back. So no sensitive data is shared with the LLM or without user consent. But it's pretty cool, because the MCP server might, for example, if we get to the graph schema example, the MCP server might figure out, okay, so I have all the stuff, I have the CSV files, I know what the query type will be most dominant, the write or read queries, but I'm not sure what the best naming for nodes and relationships could be. So the MCP server could initiate sampling, where the MCP server wants to ask LLM, hey, these are my headers. It will be right dominant. Please give me the best node labels and relationship types that I should use in my graph schema. That's an example of a sampling, and the user is the one that will pretty much approve each step of that process. And the last one is roots. It's pretty much scopes, where the client defines, hey, this is the directory that you should focus on. It's mostly used in the code editors where your project is a root, and all the actions, all the tools, all the agentic workflow is done within that root. In terms of Memgraph, it could be, for example, a directory of reports or CSV files or any data source that should be used to generate a knowledge graph. So it's pretty much defining those different scopes. So those are like the primary features of the MCP. And you will find most of them like whenever you check any MCP client or the MCP server. But the one that's like in 90% of cases is the tools. That's one you want, and that's one that's pretty working pretty well. If you want to get to the agentic workflow, you want to get more of the elicitation sampling because you want that workflow working from the actual MCP server. And if you even go to the MCP website, and you can see the example clients there, and then you see the actual features, and you can see which one supports which of the features, and which is pretty cool because you can see like, oh, if I want to use the MCP server that's using elicitations and sampling, you probably want to use the client that supports that. Otherwise, you won't see that questionnaire. You won't see those questions to approve approve those workflows and the agentic questions. So okay, so we have the client, we have the server, we have the features. But in terms of the MCP clients, then how we can define, like you saw here, this is only the beginning of the list. We are only on the letter A. But then what makes clients better? And as I said before, it really depends on the use case. It really depends what you want to achieve with it. Maybe only a tools and the MCP clients that support tools without user interface is a good place to go. Maybe you need a client that can easily integrate into your application, and it should support prompts and tools and resources. Then you know what you want to look for. There are 4 segments pretty much, which defines which client is the better one, depending on your use case. But we can see that it's the app features, meaning what's the added value in the actual app, like through the UI or UX, that helps user achieve the actual goal or get the value from. Then you have the LLM integration, like your MCP client, your AI app, with how many LLMs it can connect to. Is it using all the latest features from the LLMs or not? Is it using reasoning, streaming, like a whole bunch of features there? You might not need all, you might need all. It really depends. Then we get to the MCP features. What kind of features you need in your workflow? And then you need to check those and tick those to select. And the MCP transport. It's not really every client works with every server. There are different transport types, like STDO, standard input, streamable HTTP, and the SSE, meaning server-side events, which is deprecated now and should be replaced with the streamable HTTP. So we can see like there is a local and remote transport type, and you need to also see like which one works best for you. They are like from on that site, awesome MCP servers, like 70% of those servers are only local, meaning using the standard input as the only transport type. meaning so your client needs to be close to the actual server. Okay, so we got through the pretty much the core concepts of the MCP, the clients, the server, the features. And now I want to show you in the Memgraph lab how we got to the situation where it became the MCP client too. Like back in June, we released the lab 3.3, which had these built-in LLM tools. So the LLM providers created a way where you can pretty much give them, without the MCP, give them like, these are the tools that I want to run. And we created these built-in tools, which is pretty much mostly used like on Memgraph, like run cipher query, PageRank, get the config, get the schema. And from that version on, you can pretty much use the tools with your LLM integrations in the lab. And then a few months later, the lab 3.6, we added the MCP server connections. So in that version, you can pretty much add the MCP server and use all the tools from that MCP server, which is pretty cool. And it really gives you a ways to integrate any MCP server or even build your own and integrate it into the lab, because lab then became the MCP client per se. And I want to now get to a few examples before getting to the demo, how you can actually use that. For example, this is an example for Customer 360. Let's say you have a knowledge graph of your customers, what they do, and in Memgraph database, and you created a knowledge graph. All these previous calls that Ante and Marco did, like they talked more about the data ingestion and creation of that knowledge graph. So I won't go into details regarding that here. But let's say like we have the knowledge graph, and then with the lab, as lab is the MCP client, you can pretty much connect MCP server from Salesforce, MCP server from MailChimp, from Snowflake, or even create your custom MCP. And then you have all those tools within a single app, meaning your user can ask a question, and then the LLM decides where to get that information from. Maybe get the account state from Snowflake, check the latest sales process from the Salesforce, see what are the different communities around that user, and create a campaign for MailChimp. Like all that can be done from the lab because of all the MCP servers connected to it and all the tools that are exposed, all those functionalities. For example, another example, it can be supply chain, where you have an SAP system, the warehouse, for example. It can be sensors, it can be like how many packages do I have and all the logistic behind it. And on the other side, you have your custom MCP server, but you created an agent. An agent is pretty much an app. Why wrote proactive? Because that agent uses elicitations and samplings. For example, it could ask user, when do you need this package by? What routes should we focus on? Oh, this route is more expensive now than this one. Can I proceed? And so on. So it doesn't need to be like getting the information. It can be also creating new information from that actual agent, which is all connected through the MCP servers. And user actually interacts with it through the lab. So the MCP part really gives you a way to connect all those services, and the LLM is the one picking the information, getting the information back, and giving you all the unified stuff at a single point, at one place. Cool. Okay. I want to now show you a quick demo. I'll show you the lab version that we are currently working on that will be released in several days. But the current one that's released, you can use it to pretty much do the same. So you can create MCP servers, you can use those tools. Right now, we are pretty much improving the user experience, user interface, so and adding more features to it. So let's get into it. So I have Memgraph running. I added a data set. It's, I think, the US national parks. Yeah, let me open a schema. So it's US national parks. It's pretty much which state has which national park, what species are there, the category, and the common name. So a pretty simple schema of a data set there. Regarding the AI stuff, it's all in the settings, the configuration of it. So I created the OpenAI provider and I created the model. Adding those is really simple. Like I can show you. Like you want to create a model. So you have Oyama, OpenAI, Azure, DeepSeek, Anthropic, or Gemini. You have all the inputs here. Let me just find the key. And so when you add a key, we can configure that model, and then you pretty much add the model that you want to work with. Like 5.1 was released recently, so we can also add it too. You can edit the temperature tokens and all the stuff. When you create it, we will actually verify that the actual model works, and we have all that info there. So okay, so we have two models. By the way, you can create models. So I have two providers because they are different API keys. So I can maybe add here old, so I know that it's the old key. But I could create this 5.1 within this new provider. So I can just create a new model, 5.1, how the name should be called, let's say 5.1. And I have two models. So within a single provider, you can have multiple models in there and then use them however you want. I already created the MCP server, so let me remove them. So I can show you how you can pretty much add all this easily. So you always will start with the built-in server. So the built-in server is the one that has all these built-in tools, and you can even create your custom tool, which should be cipher-based. So you can call a query procedure. You can call, like, it should be a cipher which will be called on Memgraph. If you have your own MCP server, then you probably won't use these. These are the system tools, so they're always there built in, so you don't need to start anything new if you want to pretty much work only on Memgraph. These are the tools that will be always there. And if I want to add the MCP, currently we only support that streamable HTTP MCPs, so we are not supporting the standard input MCP transport type. So I have the MCP Memgraph running on port 8000. You can actually check that and download that and start that on the Memgraph AI Toolkit GitHub repo. So here it is, the MCP Memgraph, and you have a way how to start it, how to prepare it, and run it locally. So that's the first one. When you connect to it, so what Lab does is it goes there and gets all the stuff. So it finds 9 tools on this MCP. Cool. Okay, so we have the MCP. Let's create another one. I also started the local MCP for charts. Let's connect, and you can see like I have a whole bunch of different tools to create charts. The MCP that I added was this one. So the MCP server chart. So it creates all different charts, and it's pretty cool. You just add it, and whenever you ask the LLM to create a chart, it will use this MCP server. I will show you right now how that looks like. And let's add another one with the token, like the Tavily for web search. They also have the MCP, and it's remote, which is cool. And if you register there, you can get the API key. So here it is. You can get the API key and you can connect to it and then use it. And I will add a key, connect, and you can see I have now the search capabilities, scrolling capabilities, like crawling websites and all that comes with it. Cool. So I have now all the MCP servers. You can add new, remove them, edit them. This sync is, the lab usually syncs whenever you open the agent chat, when you want to start the chat. But if you're working on your local MCP and then you changed something, you can always click resync and the lab will go there and get the new tools and see the current state of it. And we have the agent now. So we have the tools, we have the LLM connections. Now we need agents. An agent is pretty much something that, let me remove the one here. So we have a clean state. So the agent is pretty much like, I want to use this model, these tools, and this is how I should behave. That's the agent. So you can edit the introduction message, which describes how you should, how the LLM should be used. You can select which model, for example, to use over here. And then we have like how many previous messages should be used. Let's increase that to 10. Should I use graph schema? Like, you can remove all this if you want a clear prompt or add them. Like, I won't go into details there. And now you have all the MCP servers, and then you can pick which ones you want to enable. For example, I don't want every single chart. I will talk later on why I don't want every single chart. Pie chart is fine, organizational, cool, mind, liquid, fishbone, I don't need that, district, no column, these are fine. So you don't need, like, I don't need all 25 tools. I don't want to get in, this is the Memgraph MCP, okay? I don't want, and I will remove the built-in ones because they are pretty much the same as the one from the MCP Memgraph, like you can see. So I don't need double of those. Okay, I created the agent. So I don't want to get into the tool overload problem, which I will talk a bit later on. Okay, now I have everything set up. I can always get back here, edit stuff, create new stuff, and so on. Create new agents. I don't need to have only one agent. I can have multiple agents in there. Let's go back to the agent chat. Now I can actually ask, I know, any question. For example, what are the top 5 parks by number of species? And now the agent will, it has all the tools that can be used, and it has the LLM connection to the OpenAI. Now it needs to use all that. So that's the client work. And I can see that, yeah, it used the run query. It used the, I want to find the park and all the species in it and like get all those counts back. And then we got the message back, what actually was here. And let's use another tool, like, can you create a bar chart of the date? So, like, as I connected the MCP for charting, now the LLM should be able to pick the MCP chart server and generate the chart from the response to the previous response. So, and as you can see, like, it pretty much used all that information above and created an image, and I can pretty much save this image locally and then use it in any of my reports back. Let's, how about a pie chart? For example, I know if I need another type of chart here. Something that's new in this lab compared to the one that's already released, we added this real-time streaming. In the one that's currently released, you will get all the answers immediately once everything is done. So that's the only difference. You don't need to see, oh, maybe it's too slow. It's pretty much waiting for the final response. Okay, cool. What should we, for example, which species is the most important one? Like, let's see what's the import. Like, this question is not really clear. Yeah. Like, could you clarify what you mean by most important? Like, you can see now, this came from the LLM. It's an additional question for me. I need to clarify. If this was initiated by the MCP server, it would be an elicitation, the feature that I talked before, like where I need to respond to the MCP server, not the LLM. So now the LLM asked, because the LLM is not sure what to do here, and then I can describe what it means, like which species is the most connected. So the LLM knows really what I mean by the most important. And now it should, yeah, it's now calling the PageRank to find the most important. Why it's calling the PageRank? Because in the description of the tool, it says PageRank is best used if you want to find the most connected one, but also like the impact analysis of it. If you need more details, yeah, like let's call another. I had the Tavily MCP. I need to search. So, for example, can you give me some recent news about that plant? Let's see. The LLM should now pick the MCP tool for to get that information online using the Tavily MCP. Yeah, so it's pretty much calling the web search, and it gave me the 3 different articles, and I can read more about them. And you can see like it's using all the previous conversation. You can see the tokens, so you know how much it's being charged, which model, and so on. So this is how you pretty much work with it, and it picks different tools. I want to create another one. I want to create a question which should involve multiple MCP servers at once. For example, let's say explore the dataset and provide me with a summary of it along with a few charts. Okay, now it should explore my dataset. Luckily, it's not huge enough, so it should be fast. And it should provide me with a summary of it, and it should create a few charts. So now I expect it to run the MCP Memgraph, to run those cipher queries, and then run the chart MCPs to get present those charts in here. It takes more time. Let's see what it ends up with. And cool. Okay, so we are seeing pretty much the schema. And this is pretty much schema. What's in there, what properties, what types, and then it called, it figure out it should find different, let's see, get the how many parks are in each state, and then it find how many species per category, and then it called the charts, and then it created those 2 charts down below. So you can see like how it uses different MCPs to get all that information back. And that's how you can integrate your different MCPs, and it should be able to figure out which tools to use in order to get the final answer back. Yeah, I will get back to the presentation so we don't waste too much time on the actual demo. But this is pretty much how you can do it. Like you create the LLM connections, these MCP connections. In this new lab versions, we have agents. In this previous version, you will immediately select which tools should be available for each MCP server. So it's simpler to configure. Uh, and then you get to the chat and start chatting with it and see which tools are being used, why, and so on. And that's how you actually integrate all that together. Yeah, let's get back. Uh, we only have two topics left, which is the challenges. So if you were to build the MCP client, or if you want to use the MCP client that's already there, what are the challenges? So the MCP ecosystem is evolving like at rapid speed. And for example, the SSC, the server-side events, were there from the beginning, and now they're deprecated. So they are deprecated within a year. And we have now a streamable HTTP, and I'm sure some of other things that are used now will be deprecated soon and maybe changed. And implementing all that and keeping that pretty much in shape is pretty hard. So, because new features often lack documentation. So you need to pretty much get to the source code and figure out how it's used and how you should integrate with it. On the other side, you have the LLM, and I think on OpenAI website, they also say that like more than 20 tools, the LLM accuracy might drop because LLM might not be able to figure out which tool to use because there are so many tools registered. And it's really pretty much a strategy how to create which tools to send to the LLM. Currently, the lab pretty much sends what you select. We haven't yet implemented any smart moves on how to select even a subset of those, so we can get the LLM focused on the actual answer. So that's a huge problem, especially if you want to integrate on hundreds of MCP servers. And then you have the orchestration complexity. So the client needs to talk to the user, to the AI app through the user, to the LLM, different LLMs. They have different APIs. And then MCP servers, which have different features, different implementation. Like some might have tools, some might have prompts, the other one might have elicitations, the other one doesn't have any of this. Like that's pretty hard. Like you have a lot of moving parts, and along that, the different transport layers. What's good is the MCP library tries to overcome over those issues. So you don't need to waste time on that. But there are like edge cases and different error handling. Like for example, elicitation. What happens if you deny sampling? What happens if the LLM gets out of budget? And there are so many edge cases that needs to be covered so you don't end up in a blocked state. And that's really hard because of those and moving systems. And I don't even need to spend time talking about permissions and security and like how each MCP server should be able to like how to figure out what should I know what kind of permission it should have, what data should be hidden from it, how it know like what kind of user asking. Like there are a whole bunch of problems just by connecting all these pieces together, and those are the actual challenges of the MCP client implementation and the usage of it as well. Um, and yeah, what's next? Like, what are the AR features that we are working on and we will be working on, so you know what to expect. So this is the current MCP state in the lab. We support the tools that's already released a month ago, which means you can integrate the MCP server and use all the tools from it. Right now, we are working on the elicitation and sampling, which means if the MCP server you are using uses those features, you will see them in the lab. Not many use them right now because it's in experimental mode and it's pretty new, but it can pretty much step up your game in the agentic workflows and getting that dialogue in work. And we want to, like next in line is to add these prompts and support of resources. So the user can pretty much pick those and create better uh, more accurate LLM responses. That's regarding the MCP, but regarding the lab and AI features is the full MCP support, which we covered now. It's also the agentic experience. So, like what I talked before about what makes the MCP client better, and if you can remember, the first point was the added value in the app. So we wanna, once we have the full MCP support, we will be able to integrate that with the lab features, which is the graph visualization, graph schema creation, graph rag, structured, unstructured imports. So all the stuff which already have a face, we can connect it to the MCP to be the brain of it. And that's the added value. Like that's what makes every MCP client a bit different. For example, the code editor agents and MCP clients, they are pretty much aligned with the code editor and all the actions there. We want to be aligned with the graph rag, graph creations, and all that. And the Team Hub, right now, when you start a lab, all the stuff you create is saved within your local browser. What we want to do is create like a centralized management of that. So the admin can create all those LLM connections, agents, and everything, and then the users using the lab can use that, and then you can pretty much fine-tune them from one place rather than giving out the connection details and everything to every single user, which is time expensive and resource expensive as well. So those are the different directions that we will be taking in the future. And yeah, that's pretty much all. So yeah, I hope you learned something new. If you haven't know about the MCP, and yeah, if you want to check it out, download Lab, download Memgraph, and connect the MCP service you like. It needs to be it needs to be the MCP server which supports the streamable HTTP. So the lab is not working with the standard input transport layer. That's the only difference. So, or create your own MCP server, like check the fast MCP, and you can create the MCP server like with pretty much within a minute, and then start it and then integrate it in your workflow. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Once you try it, send us a feedback, give us like what you like, what you dislike. The new lab, as I said, will be released in several days, so you will be able to experience this real-time streaming, elicitation, sampling, and all that stuff. But even the current release lab, which you can download immediately, already have the MCP integration and tool discoveries. Yeah, cool. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was beneficial for you. And as you know, like we are continuing our AI community calls, and tomorrow you will be able to know and to learn more about how Orbis, how they created the RAG app on the MCP based architecture, which is pretty much like some parts of it in a real world. Yeah. That's it. Thank you guys. Enjoy and take care. Bye bye.